Hey everyone, it's Bluebear here, and today I will start my several weeks long adventure of bringing you deck builds that were ordered but for some reason or another not paid for. I decided that instead of just taking them apart, why not just adjust them a little and make them part of my pre-con style commander deck offerings and sell them to someone else. I'll start this little mini adventure off with a Ganax Astral Hunter Dragon Tribal build. This build includes a background enchantment as a second commander as well, which is a first for the channel. The background that was chosen was Acolyte of Bahamut. Let me tell you all about these two cards, and then I will get into the rest of the 98. What I will show you is the modified version to fit my $40 pre-con style builds and not the original $50 build that was ordered. Ganax is a 1 red and 4 generic mana, 3/4 legendary dragon with flying, and 2 other abilities. The second ability is whenever it or another dragon enters play under your control, you create a treasure token. And the last ability is what made it possible to make this a red and green deck, which is to choose a background. For those that don't know, backgrounds are legendary enchantments that grant commanders you control different abilities. You can only use a background as a second commander if your main commander states to choose a background like Ganax does. Backgrounds allow you to make different color pairings that broaden how you can build different themes of decks. Currently, they only exist in the Baldur's Gate set, but I hope that changes in the future. So, the background chosen for this build was Acolyte of Bahamut, which is a 1 green and 1 generic mana legendary enchantment that gives commander creatures you own the ability to cast the first dragon spell you cast each turn for 2 generic mana less. The original order was for a purely dragon tribal build, and since dragons are quite a popular theme, I decided to just stick with it. So let's get started, and I'll show you just how I went about building the rest of the 98, starting with the lands. Remember, we're on a budget, so everything here will be a budget-friendly version of a dual land. Timber Gorge just comes into play untapped and can add red or green. Same thing with Gruul Guildgate. Counts as a gate in case you want to do some shenanigans with gates. You've got Thriving Bluff, which when it comes into play, you choose green for this one, and then it can add green or red. Same thing with Thriving Grove, only you say red instead of green. Some land gainers here, some life gainers here. Kazandu Refuge comes into play tapped to gain a life. Same thing with Rugged Highlands. Racer's Rig can add red or green, and then obviously you can draw a card. Gruul Turf, it's the bounce land, so it comes into play. You have to return a land you control to your hand, but it taps to add a green and red. Comes into play tapped as well. There's no shenanigans that I can think of that would go with this. Temple of the Dragon Queen, it's actually a pretty good one. So when it enters the battlefield, you may reveal a dragon card from your hand, and then Temple of the Dragon Queen enters the battlefield tapped unless you reveal a dragon, so it can come into play untapped. Then you choose a color, and then it adds a mana of the chosen color. Obviously, you're going to choose red or green, whichever one you're light on when it does come into play. Evolving Wilds, and then, of course, Terramorphic Expanse to get some lands out of your deck, so that makes your draws better later. And then the rest of it's going to be basic mountains and forests. And as I always say in this section, I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but I will have a link to the deck list for my MTG Goldfish account in the description of the video, so if you want to check it out, you can go ahead and do so. Moving on to the ramp section, we're going to have some spells, some rocks, and some additional permanents that do stuff. So, we're in green, so obviously we have access to the spells that put lands into play. Rampant Growth is the first one. Untamed Wilds is the second one. Path to the Festival. Good thing about this one is you can flash it back, so you can do it more than one time. Map the Wastes. It goes and gets a land, puts it into play, and then you can put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control, which is always nice in a deck like this. Natural Connection. It's an instant version of any of the stuff I just showed you. Beneath the Sands, if you don't need the land, you can cycle away to draw a card, which could be useful. The permanents start here. It's Jade Orb of the Dragon Kind is the first one. It's a 3-cast rock that adds a green, and when you use that green to cast a dragon creature spell, it enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter and gets hexproof until end of turn. The red one is Carnelian Orb of Dragon Kind. It's 3-cast as well. Taps that a green, and if that mana was spent to cast a dragon creature spell, it gains haste until end of turn. Scaled Nurture. It's a creature. It's an 0/2 for 2. It taps that a green, and when this mana is spent to cast a dragon, you gain 2 life. And then these aren't really ramp per se, these are reducers. So I've got Dragon Lord's Servant. It's 2-cast 1/3 that makes your dragon spells cost 1 generic less to cast. And then, of course, we got its older yet better brother, Dragon Speaker Shaman. It's a 3-cast 2/2 that makes your dragon spells cost 2 less to cast. So, as much as I could do, there's more ramp-ish style cards in this deck than usual because the high converted mana cost or mana values of the dragons make it so you need them. Moving on to the creature section, we're going to have all dragons here. This is a dragon tribal deck. It has high mana value costing stuff from, I still say converted mana cost even though it's not the way you're supposed to say it, but it has some high stuff, so that's why all the ramp. I'm going to refer to a term called Fire Breathing. It is a reference to a aura. It is an aura that is a red, and I think 1 or just red. It attaches to a creature, and it gives it the ability to pay 1 red mana to give a creature +1/+0. Most of the creatures in here will have that. So when I reference the phrase Fire Breathing, that's what it means. And we start off with the first one, being a Fire Breather. It is Dragon Hatchling. It's a 2-cast 0/1 flyer with Fire Breathing. Dragon Egg. It's a 3-cast 0/2 defender that when it dies, you create a 2/2 red dragon creature token with flying and Fire Breathing. Gadrick, the Crown Scourge. It's a 3-cast 5/4 flyer. It cannot attack unless you control 4 or more artifacts, and oh look, it even helps that ability out by, at the beginning of your end step, create a treasure token for each non-creature token that died that turn. So it helps itself be able to attack, but if not, it's still a 5/4 blocker with flying for 3. A couple of the cards in here will have adventure. If you don't know what adventures are, let me know and I will explain it to you, either in the comment section. Just tell me and I'll explain it. This is a 4 to cast 3/2 flying non-blocking creature. It can't block. It has a built-in adventure for 2 at instant speed. You can create a treasure token, so you'll exile it after you do that, and then you can cast the creature side. Dragon Whelp, one of the OG dragons. It is a 4 to cast 2/3 flyer with fire breathing with a caveat. So if you spend more than 3 red for the fire breathing, you have to, I guess it's sacrifice it. I think it's either sacrifice or destroy it at end of turn. Can't remember what the new term is. Arcbound Whelp is a 4 to cast 0/0 flyer that has modular 2, which means it comes into play with 2+1/+1 counters, making it a 2/2 flyer. When it dies, you can take its counters and put them on another artifact creature. There is only one other one in the deck, so that's not really all that relevant. And it also has fire breathing. Furnace Whelp is a 4 to cast 2/2 flyer with fire breathing. Pretty simple. Like I said, fire breathing will be said a lot here in this video. Thunderbreak Regent, 4 to cast 4/4 flyer. When a dragon you control becomes the target of a spell or an ability an opponent controls, Thunderbreak Regent deals 3 damage to that player. It's kind of like the original form of Ward for all your dragons, so now they have to basically take 3 damage to target them. Opportunistic Dragon, this one's an interesting one. It's 4 to cast 4/3 flyer, that when it enters the battlefield, target you choose a human or an artifact an opponent controls, and for as long as you control the dragon, you gain control of it, and it loses all its abilities. So you can actually take your opponent's commander if they are a human or an artifact for some reason. So not bad, actually. It's kind of like, just stealing stuff just to get it off the board. Thundering Predator, it's a 5 to cast 3/3 flyer that helps you loot. When it enters play, you can discard a card to draw a card. Rapacious Dragon helps the other dragon that needs artifacts in play. It is a 5 to cast 3/3 flyer. When it enters battlefield, you create 2 treasure tokens. A little bit of ramp too, even though it's a lot, not very cheap mana-wise. Purifying Dragon, it's a 5 to cast 4/3 flyer that when it attacks, it deals a damage to a creature the defending player controls, and if that creature was a zombie, it deals 2 damage to it instead. Spark-Tongued Dragon is a 5 to cast 3/3 flyer that when it enters the battlefield, you may pay an additional 3, and when you do, it does 3 damage to any target you'd like. Stormwing Dragon's a 6 to cast 3/3 flying first strike Megamorpher. So Morph or Megamorph, they're both the same thing, just one's a little different. You can play the creature face down for 3 generic, and it's a 2/2 nothing creature. And then you can morph it, or in this case Megamorph it for 7. And when you do, and it's turned face up, you may put a +1/+1 counter on each other dragon you control. Amethyst Dragon, another one with an adventure attached to it. It's a 6 to cast 4/4 flying haste. Its adventure is for 5 at sorcerer speed. You can have, it's called Explosive Crystal, and it deals 4 damage divided any way you choose among any number of targets. So you can spread damage around and kind of wipe the board a little bit. Red Dragon is a 6 to cast 6/6 flyer that when it enters play, it deals 4 damage to each opponent. Copying this guy is always good. Lathlis, the Dragon Queen, actually is the Queen of Dragons. 6 to cast 6/6 flyer. Whenever another non-token dragon enters the battlefield under your control, you create a 5/5 red dragon creature with flying. And she has, because it's a queen. She has Mega Fire Breathing, and that's to say that her ability is 1 red and 1 of any for each one you put into that to give all dragons you control +1/+0 until end of turn. Bardic Dragon is a 6 to cast 4/4 flyer with fire breathing, but you can suspend it for 2 red, making it a lot cheaper. However, the caveat here is that whenever an opponent casts a spell, if Bardic Dragon is suspended, that player may choose to put a time counter on Bardic Dragon, making it longer for it to come into play. Volcanic Dragon is a 6 to cast 4/4 flying haste. Fang Dragon is a 7 to cast 6/3 flyer with an adventure built into it. At sorcerer speed for 2, it's called Forktail Sweep. It deals 1 damage to each creature that you don't control. So it helps get rid of little 1/1 tokens that you don't control. Dragon Mage, 7 to cast 5/5 flyer that when it deals combat damage to a player, each player must discard their hand and draw 7 cards. Now, this one's a really interesting inclusion. A lot of people don't want to discard their hand. The mana cost of 7 usually means that by the time this is out and you can attack with it, your hand may be pretty empty. So this is actually beneficial for you in that you may already have an empty hand, so that you can just hit somebody with it and draw 7 new cards. Draconic Ritualists, we're going into the green ones now, is a 4 to cast 4/3 non-flyer that when it dies, you may search your library for a dragon card, reveal it, put it in your hand, and then shuffle. So it's a tutor for dragons specifically. Ambitious Dragonborn is a 4 to cast 0/0 that enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control and creature cards in your graveyard. So whoever, if it's in your graveyard or in play, whichever creature you have has the highest power, that's what it comes into play with +1/+1 counters wise. Lurking Green Dragon is a 4 to cast 4/4. This one's actually flying. However, it can't attack unless the defending player controls a creature with flying anyway. So flying doesn't always matter. If your opponent is playing flying, that's beneficial. If not, it's just a 4 to cast 4/4 flying blocker. So there's not really much you can do but make them create a flyer. There's not a lot of things that do, though. Skanos Dragonheart is a 5 to cast 4/4 that whenever it attacks, it gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the greatest power among other dragons you control and dragon cards in your graveyard, and it has choose a background. So He's included because if you wanted to swap out your commander for him instead and make it a slightly different style of deck, you'd have to choose another background. I did not include one in here because there wasn't one that I really cared for that was red for this deck. You can swap out your commanders and make it a slightly different deck. Green Dragon, 6 to cast, 4/4 flyer, has Breath Weapon, so it means that when it enters the battlefield until end of turn, whenever a creature an opponent controls is dealt damage, destroy it. Now, I said earlier that one of the cards has an adventure on it that deals 1 damage to each creature. That's a nice little synergy there to go with it, so keep that in mind. Emerald Dragon is a 6 to cast, 4/4 flying trample with an adventure on it. At instant speed, it's called, what is this called? Dissonant Wave. You can counter an activated or triggered ability from a non-creature source. So, anything that's not a creature that does something, so an artifact or an enchantment that's not a creature, if it has an ability that is activated or triggered, you can counter it. Destructor Dragon, it's a 6 to cast, 4/4 flying, and when it dies, destroy target non-creature permanent. Basically, it's the same cost as Desert Twister, but it has a 4/4 flying body, and when it dies, it Desert Twisters. Like I said, the mana value of all the cards is high, so that's why I had the reducers. And the last creature that's going to be in here is the other artifact creature I mentioned earlier. It's a 6 to cast, 5/5 flyer called Steel Hellkite. It has the ability, kind of like Fire Breathing, where it's instead of 1 red, it's 2 generic to give it +1/+0 until the turn. And it has this really cool ability at the end that's nice for things that you want to destroy. So, for X, you can destroy each non-land permanent with converted mana cost or mana value now, X, whose controller was dealt combat damage by Steel Hellkite this turn, and you can only activate that ability once. So what that means is you attack somebody and you hit them. Then you have the option for the rest of the turn, you can pay X into it to destroy all things that have the same mana value on their side. So if they're playing, and this is really cool, if they're playing a token deck, you can pay 0 into it and destroy all the tokens. So really cool stuff there. As far as the rest of the deck goes, we're going to do, it's all utility and doing different things. So we'll start off with the quasi card draw. So things like Adventurous Impulse. It's not really card draw, but at least it puts cards into your hand. You look at the top 3 cards of your library, you may reveal a creature or a land from among them and put it into your hand, and then put the rest in the bottom of your library in any order. Winding Way, 2 to cast, choose a creature or land, and then reveal the top 4 cards of your library and put all cards of the chosen type revealed this way into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. Seek the Wilds, one of my favorite ones. You look at 4 cards from the top of your library. You can reveal a creature or land card from among them and put it into your hand and the rest in the bottom of your library in any order. Warm Welcome, instant for 3. Look at the top 5 cards of your library, and you may reveal a creature card from among them. What else is there? And put it in your hand, and then put the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order, and then you can create a 1/1 green and white citizen creature token. Surprised citizens aren't humans. But I guess they're not always humans. All right, and the last part of this section, which would be putting cards in your hand or quasi-draw, is you find some prisoners. 2 to cast instant, where you get to choose either to destroy an artifact or exile the top 3 cards of your of target opponent's library. You choose one of them, and until end of your next turn, you may play that card and spend mana as it was any color to cast it. So, not really quasi-card draw either. It's actually, anti your opponent's deck, so whatever. Next section will be destruction, things that take out things on your opponent's side. Earlier, I had a creature that had an adventure on it that was a sweeper, is what I call it, where it can do damage or destroy a lot of things at once. This one, it's just like that, Pyroclasm. 2 to cast, deal 2 damage to each creature. Your creature should be big enough to not worry about that. Most of your stuff is flying and has at least a 4 toughness, so that shouldn't matter. This is good for things that need to have damage dealt to them to die that are low toughness. And there's a couple of these in here. Another one's Crush the Weak. 3 to cast, deals 2 damage to each creature. If a creature dealt damage this way would die, exile instead, and you can foretell it for 1 red. Breath Weapon, now we're talking, deals 2 damage to each non-dragon creature. See how there's a lot of damage-based stuff? Because red and green don't have a lot of creature removal. Let's see, Fast and Furious. It's one of those weird cards where you can choose either side. You can either Fast it, which is to discard a card and draw 2 cards, which is basically loot, or Furious it, which deals 3 damage to each creature without flying. And most of your stuff has flying, not everything. So it's kind of like a one-sided board wipe. Swirling Sandstorms, this one's a little weird. It's 4 to cast and doesn't do anything if you don't have Threshold. Threshold means you have to have 7 or more cards in your graveyard. And if you do have Threshold, it deals 5 damage to each creature without flying. So, again, most of your stuff is flying, but not everything. Draconic Roar, this is more on theme than it is anything else. It's just because I wanted dragon theme stuff in here. It's 2 to cast. As an additional cost to cast Draconic Roar, you may reveal a dragon card from your hand. It deals 3 damage to any creature, and if you revealed a dragon card or controlled a dragon as you cast it, it deals 3 damage to that creature's controller as well. Another card just like it. It is Dragon's Fire. It's 2 to cast instant. As an additional cost to cast this, again, you can reveal a dragon from your hand, or you can choose a dragon you control. It deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker. However, if you revealed a dragon or chose a dragon as you cast a spell, it deals damage equal to that creature's power instead. Grumble destroys an artifact, and the controller gains life equal to its mana value. Naturalize destroys an artifact or enchantment. Return to Nature, same thing, destroys an artifact and enchantment, but it also can exile a card from a graveyard if you need that. Reclaiming Vines destroys an artifact, enchantment, or land. Tectonic Rift destroys land and makes creatures without flying unable to block for that turn. And Destructive Revelry, I will superimpose an English version on here. It destroys an artifact or enchantment and deals 2 damage to the owner of that artifact or enchantment. And then as far as utility goes, the rest of it, there's no destruction here. This is all pure utility. Goblin War Drums, all this says is that your attacking creatures have menace. Cruel War Chant, same thing. It gives all your attacking creatures menace and +1/+0. Colossal Majesty is my repeated card draw. It's one of the 2. It says at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card, and you should definitely have a creature with power 4 or greater in this deck. Garrick's Uprising, the other repeatable card draw. 3 to cast enchantment that when it enters the battlefield, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, you draw a card. It gives your creatures trample, and then whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under control, you draw a card. And the last one, it's basically no dragon deck is complete without a Sarkhan. This one is Sarkhan the Masterless. It's 5 to cast, comes into play with 5 loyalty, has one of the better static abilities of the Planeswalkers from War of the Spark, at least for this deck. So whenever a creature attacks you or a Planeswalker you control, each dragon you control deals 1 damage to that creature. And it doesn't matter how many creatures are attacking you, it does it for it's a triggered ability for each one of them. It's not just for one. So you could actually have somebody attack you and wipe their board without them realizing it. Has an uptick of 1, and says until end of turn, each Planeswalker you control becomes a 4/4 red dragon creature and gains flying. Not really relevant here, but I mean, if you want to make him a dragon and attack, that's not bad. And then downtick, no ultimate, just 1 downtick to create a 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying. So really good utility here. For this deck, I really like that static ability, though. And there you have it, folks. Ganax, Astral Hunter, Dragon Tribal with an Acolyte of Bahamut background on a budget. If you like dragons, this deck should be right up your alley. This was the first deck of a bad trend of customer requests that fell through. This is a new trend that I hope ends as quickly as it began. Luckily, the decks ordered were popular themes and close enough to the $40 price tag that I like to stay in that only slight changes were needed to be made. Next week, I will be doing a similar style of video for another deck that was requested by the same person who originally ordered this week's deck. That deck, however, had to have one major change that I will tell you all about next week. That's all I've got for you this week, though. Thank you for watching, and as always, if you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or concerns, or you just want to talk or chat about any of the videos I put out, you can do so using any of the methods I have displayed here. Additionally, if you would like to support the channel, you can do so in 3 ways. Donations are accepted and greatly appreciated. I have 3 methods with which you can do so displayed on the screen, and keep in mind that no amount is too small. If donations aren't your thing, and you would like to get something for your money, that's great too. I sell a lot of the decks I present on the channel, as well as mystery packs. So, if you're interested in any of these, you can contact me using the information I have up on your screen right now. Directly contacting me is usually the best and cheapest way to do so, but you can always look at what I currently have available on the Facebook Marketplace. And lastly, if you want to show your love and support for the channel, but like myself, are a little strapped for cash, it doesn't cost you anything to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet, watch some videos and give them a like, and possibly share them out on your social medias you use to help spread my content to more people. No matter what way you choose is greatly appreciated and will help support the channel, and I thank you for it. Sadly, that is all the time I have for this video. Thank you for watching, and please, stick around and watch some of the many great videos I've posted over the last few years, and remember to check back again for new content I'll be posting every week. Have a great day.